And now from the Bedroomer Studios, a special presentation for Grandma Dier. Tales of the Captain Duke, the Stowaway Debutante.
Chapter 4, in which our heroine finally gets to wear trousers. Clara could hardly believe her good fortune as she followed Nessa from the cabin. She could not have foreseen such luck in her plans for escaping the island. In the span of a few hours, she had gone from a stowaway with an uncertain future in the streets of London to a commissioned pilot on a renowned airship. Admittedly, the esteemed Captain Duke and his crew had a reputation as pirates, but she was certain there was more to that tale than was commonly known. He had seemed to show more concern for the missing grain than the gunpowder gained in the raid. In any case, she already felt a rapport growing with Trick, a good sign of things to come. As for the captain, it remained to be seen. He was a harder man to read. She was not yet sure whether he was humoring her for his own amusement, or if he was impressed by her capabilities. Nessa was another mystery. She could sense the other woman's unease. Clara was determined to prove herself regardless. She had bought her way onto this airship, and now she would earn her place on it. She followed Nessa across the decks and down a set of stairs into the crew's quarters below. The room they entered was a comfortable size, but nowhere near large enough to fit all of the pilots she had seen working above. "These are the women's quarters," Nessa replied, seeing Clara's questioning look. "The Captain Duke was kind enough to let us have our own space. Easier to avoid problems amongst the crew." "I see. Are there often problems?" asked Clara. "No, our crew knows its own business. We're professionals. Colleagues." No, I didn't mean—" Clara took a breath and caught the teasing glance Nessa cast her way as she struggled to compose her words. "I'm unfamiliar with airships. I was just unsure whether it was standard for female pilots to have their own quarters." "Some do," Nessa said. "Our crew is pretty respectful. We're more like a family than most. The Captain Duke sets the tone, and any who don't like it can leave. There's more lady pilots out there today than when I started, but there's still crews who do hold to old seafaring superstitions about women on board." Clara walked around the room. A small dresser and mirror were bolted securely in the corner. Of the 12 bunks, only 4 were bare. Nessa crossed to a closet and pulled out extra bedding. "Well, pick one and get dressed. We've got a lot to cover today if you're going to be one of my pilots." Clara quickly stored her belongings in the cubbyhole next to one of the few remaining top bunks and hurried to remove her dress. In her haste, she knotted the laces and had to ask Nessa for her assistance. After a few moments of struggle, she happily agreed to Nessa's offer of a knife instead. It was rather satisfying to cut through the ribbons and lace. The pale blue fabric fell gracefully to the floor, and she kicked it aside as she slipped into breeches and a loose tunic. She paused and took a deep breath. Her chest expanded fully, and she breathed out a sigh of pleasure, sharing a small grin with the piratess. A loose leather girdle and supple boots complemented her ensemble. She quickly rebraided her hair to keep it from her face. While looking around for a fastener, Nessa grinned and cut a swath from the ruined gown. Clara appreciated the symbolism as she bound the end of her dark plait with the blue fabric. They hung her brother's coat in a second closet that was filled with various costumes and street clothes. Nessa explained that the dresses were for days when they docked in towns that were less receptive to women in breeches. "All right, we'll take you on a tour now before you start your duties. I'm not entirely sure what the captain wants you to be doing, but I'm sure Trick will find something. What are you skilled at, anyhow?" "Well, I have been educated, if that's what you mean. I'm sure I can learn quickly," said Clara. Nessa pursed her lips, considering her. "Do you know ropes? How to tie knots?" No, not really. Can you cook?" "Well, I could certainly assist, I'm sure, but I don't have much practice." "Can you climb?" "Oh, yes, I think so. When I was little, I used to climb the fences and trees around our property." "Can you fight?" "Fight?" Nessa sighed. "Yes, fight. You're aboard an airship, not a leisure cruise. Can you fly at least?" Yes, I can fly. Well, my brother took me on his glider any chance we had. I can definitely fly." "Alone, or just in pairs?" "Well, as a pair, but I'm sure I can do it myself, really." Clara was becoming desperate as Nessa grew more and more cross. Perhaps this wasn't such a change in her fortunes after all. Clara took a deep breath. She could do this, she knew it, but how to prove herself when she had never had the opportunity to try? She squared her shoulders and looked Nessa in the eyes. I was tutored by the renowned Master Thompson alongside my brother. I learned every text on diplomacy and the British politic in my father's library by heart. I studied modern justice and the British common laws after my father found me cleaning out his dueling pistols at 9 years of age because a boy had stolen a kiss and offended me. I speak English, German, French, and a little Flemish. I've been schooled in both letters and numbers, and I can recite passages from Machiavelli as easily as I can recount Spenser or Shakespeare. I climbed the tallest trees on the island, and taught myself to swim in a pond when I was 6, so that I could chase the ocean waves on our next trip to the seaside. I have never truly fought an opponent. I prefer the use of my wits to violence, but I am practiced in the defensive arts. My father did eventually permit me to train with firearms, though I've never used them against another person. She took another breath and would have continued, but she noticed that Nessa was barely concealing her laughter. It's certainly an impressive resume. Tell me, though, what happened to the boy who stole the kiss? Nothing, Clara grumbled. They made me begin etiquette lessons with Miss Ellington instead. The laughter came rolling from her now. I can just imagine a governess trying to manage a child like you. Oh, I would pay to see that. It explains quite a bit, though. Like what? Well, you're such a lady when you're on the defensive. Cold, composed, and the like. But there's some kind of hellcat ready to be unleashed under those braces. The hellcat I can work with. The lady may be of use as well someday. You'll do fine. Clara blushed at the other woman's praise. They shook hands. Then Nessa clapped an arm around her shoulder and steered her out of the room. They almost ran right over Trick, who had just come around the corner. I see you two are as thick as thieves already. Liberators, dear Trick. The captain says no thieving aboard his ship. Yes. Well, he's instructed me to inform the crew that the most recently liberated bounty is enough to warrant a feast tonight. Nessa raised an eyebrow, but Trick only winked in return. Well, said Nessa, after a moment, we had better get you up to speed, Clara. Tonight you'll get a true taste of what it means to be one of our pilots. You've got to work for your supper on this airship. I hope you can dance or sing. Oh, yes, Miss Ellington insisted. They shared a grin at Trick's look of confusion. Never mind that, Trick. Let's go find Clara some work. Nessa linked her other arm into Trick's, and the three of them set off to the main deck. Clara's heart tumbled in her chest. She was ready to begin her adventure. Hours later, Clara was positive that she had never been so tired and happy in her life. Her body was unused to the vigor required for life in the air, but the cool winds whipping her face and the sight of the whitest of clouds stretching out over the land to kiss the sea thrilled her to no end. She paused to sweep some loosened strands of hair from her eyes. She would have to learn to braid her hair like Nessa next time. Her blonde hair never escaped its fastening. "How are you there?" shouted Kat, another of the pilots. She and her brother Mouse had joined the crew as practically babes. Their father had been a captain, and raised them on his airship after their mother's passing. When he died, the two of them had sought out the captain on their own. The bold little Catherine and her timid younger brother Morris were two of the best climbers and gliders she had ever met. Not that she had met many, but at 14 and 8 years of age their reputations were assured. "Quite fine, thank you," Clara called back over the wind. Still, she felt a stab of anxiety as Kat ran nimbly across the rope bridge running beneath balloons. "We'll teach you to glide tomorrow when you're over water. You seem to take to the heights well." They were standing on a small platform suspended from the ropes above and connected to the ship beneath by a tightly woven ladder. "Would it concern you if I was actually quite terrified by the prospect of falling?" she asked. Kat answered with a grin. "You'd be a fool if you weren't, and we can't have fools up here, right, Mouse?" Her brother swung down from his post, checking the ropes that secured the balloon. He landed perfectly with a wide grin, and Clara laughed at their antics. "You'll feel better once you know how to fly. You'll never take to solid ground again," he answered. "The weather looks good for tomorrow. We'll teach you." "Well, with such expert instructors, I can hardly refuse the opportunity," Clara said. Mouse blushed, as only a young boy can, and puffed out his chest with pride. Kat punched his arm. "Aw, you're blushing at the lady now." "I'm not. She just said we're expert." "R2, I'm not." Clara recalled the secondary explanation for the siblings' nicknames. Just as quick as their squabble had started, it switched to a challenge to see who could reach the main deck first. Clara carefully made her way down as she watched Cat and Mouse race to the ladder on the other side, each scrambling down a side of it like the rope. By the time she reached the bottom, they were squabbling again over who had won and who had cheated. She was breathless with laughter, but quickly composed herself when the Captain Duke brushed past her to separate the two of them. "She cheated! She jumped at the end! He could have too, he was only ahead by a smidge, because he got to the ladder first, that's all. I was watching, and I declare it a tie. Any questions?" he asked, crossing his arms. "No, sir," they replied together. "Wash up without fighting, there's an extra serving of duck for each of you." They scrambled off below deck, shouting their thanks behind them. "Quite the pair, aren't they?" Clara spoke aloud, addressing the captain. She had hardly seen him since receiving her commission that morning. He chuckled in reply. "They've each grown a foot this week, I'd swear on it, and you've never seen anyone tuck away food the way they do. They've got hollow bones like the gulls." He laughed, then checked his composure, smoothing out his long blue coat. "How are you taking to the pilot's life?" "Quite well. Nessa taught me the knots today. Trick is going to let me assist him with the ledgers, and those two have just taught me how to climb. I'm to fly soon as well." "Good. Please excuse me, I need to speak with Trick." He left, and Clara stood there, bemused by the sudden change in his attitude and his hasty exit. Nessa called her over to the foredeck, and she hurried to meet her. "What did you say to the captain?" "Just what I learned today." Nessa's frown turned into a sly grin, and a look of mischief crossed her face. Perhaps we'll find out more at dinner." "You did well today, Clara. Our crew works hard for their ship and for each other. We're a family. You'll have to decide whether you're one of us soon." She stopped Clara's protest. "Not now. Right now you love the adventure, and I know it. The skies are freedom to you and I, and there's a world of possibility up here. But I need to know that you'll still be with us in the hard times as well. I won't ask what you're running from. Just prove to us that you're not still running." Nessa steered her down to the cabin to wash, silencing all of Clara's questions with another rambling stream of stories and instructions about life aboard the airship.